Rev up your engines!
Well, there's another class law action suit against GM for the problems they have in their V8 motors with lifters and other problems. 9 Platons have a class action lawsuit against GM in the eastern state of Michigan, saying they made them wrong, they knew they made them wrong, assembled wrong, the lifters weren't put in correctly. As the suit says, small block V8 engines are made up of substandard materials that can cause lifters to fail. Lifters in some engines were installed in an incorrect position in the engine, causing problems. And they're also suing them because they're saying GM, when they fixed them, used defective products to fix them and they didn't stay fixed. Of course, if something's designed wrong, you keep putting lifters in a poorly designed engine, they're still going to go out. That's just the way that it goes. It's like those Hemi engines. When Dodge upgraded their Hemi engines for more horsepower, they moved the cam up higher in the air, so it was further away from the crankshaft. The crankshaft used to throw oil on the cam and lubricate it. Now it was too far, and at low speeds and idle, the cams were running dry and the cams went bad. Well, you got to rebuild the engine, put new cams and lifters in to fix it. But that doesn't fix it permanently because the cam's still in the same position and it's going to wear out prematurely too. So they're being sued for both ends. If you're curious, this covers the GM 5.3 liter, 6.2 liter V8 engines and the older 6.0 Vortec V8s. And even the ones that they use last model front engine Corvettes, the C7 Stingrays. So if you've got one, why not join in the lawsuit? They want them to recall them. That's what the lawsuit's about. Force them to recall them to fix them, right? Now, I doubt if they'll get anywhere. That's usually what happens with that stuff. That would be so much money GM would have to spend. Let's face it, it's a lawsuit in Michigan. Their headquarters are in Michigan, so who knows what shenanigans will go on with that. I doubt if they're going to recall all those engines. There's an awful lot of them. We'll see what happens on there. At least people are trying to do something about it, but I truthfully don't think anything will happen because people have tried it before and GM would win in court. They got big lawyers. They spend a lot of money. They don't want to have to spend hundreds of millions or billions of dollars doing all those engines over. Stay tuned to see what happens, but I'll bet you they dismiss it. Or if they win, then they'll go to a higher court and just keep going until they win. GM's got all the resources and lawyers. It's worth a try anyways. If you own one, my advice is complain to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. You can complain about your vehicle, and if they get enough complaints by law, they have to put an investigation, and if they say it's true, then they have to do a recall. So get involved that way. Well, if you've been following an electric truck maker, Rivian, they're the first ones to supposedly build and sell an electric pickup truck in the United States. Well, now the real truth is coming out. The two that they have, in quotation marks, sold, well, guess what? They went to the president of the company and another high-ranking officer. They just did it to get it out, get their stock up. Just another scam. The company's CEO, the chief executive officer, got one of the two, and the company's CFO, the chief financial officer, got the other. They didn't sell it to the public. It's just a scam these companies do to get their stock up, to make money. Oh, look, it's great. We're already outselling them. No, they aren't. It's just yet another electric scam people are pulling. You know, conveniently enough, they did that before as their initial public offering. I mean, they're always pulling scams with all those companies to try to get their valuation up. Oh, they're delivering to other customers now, yeah. But it'll probably be employees, like they always do, give to the employees who can't say these are horrible vehicles if they fall apart because they'll lose their job. So, you know, this is all a bunch of nonsense these people are throwing out. Now, as of December 15th, they say they made 652 of them and that 386 of them were delivered. Now, how they can say these companies are worth that much money with such a small amount of production is beyond me. The fantasy world of the stock market these days. It's like people are grasping at straws at what to invest in. Take all of that stuff with a grain of salt. Yeah, the first two out went to the CEO and the CFO of the company. Don't get suckered into this PR stuff. Nobody knows if electric pickups are really going to be popular or not, if they're really going to make it out there. No one knows. My advice, don't become one of the guinea pigs for them to test out on. Chris Cool says, I overhauled the engine of my vehicle and it still has gray smoke after I overhauled it. I seem to be losing a little coolant. Well, let's pray the coolant and the gray smoke are not related. You rebuild an engine, there's so many things that can go wrong. Get a pressure tester. Pressure test the cooling system. Pray you got a leak somewhere. Maybe a clamp's loose. Replace the radiator cap. If it's leaking, it'll evaporate coolant. Pray it's that. Because if it isn't, then it's burning the coolant because the engine repair job wasn't done right. Hopefully on the positive side, you say you're getting gray smoke. Rebuild an engine. Everything is dirty, oily. You've got new engines, got to break itself in. Many times when I was a young mechanic, we'd rebuild engines and they'd have gray smoke for weeks. Then it went away. and that was just because it was rebuilt and everything had to set itself in. Hope that your coolant loss is not related to the engine rebuild, that it's just a loose clamp or the water pump's leaking, something's leaking, pressure test it. Because if it isn't, and the engine's burning the coolant, then the job wasn't done right, rebuilding the engine. But a lot of them will smoke gray for quite some time until it's all burned off and cleaned out, then they stop. Pray the smoking goes away and the coolant is a different problem. Donna Dulles says, I got a Lexus key chip replaced free. 8 years ago, I lost my computer chip from my 99 Lexus LS400. After a Google search, I found out Lexus would replace one key chip for free. Dealer wanted $2,500, but I got to do it for free. Now my daughter needs a computer chip for a 2013 IS250. Do you know about this policy and where I can find a shower? All right, as far as I know, they only ever did that on the old LS400s from the 90s because that's when they started making them. They wanted to have really good rapport. I have never seen anybody with the 2010 up get anything for free from the Lexus dealer. I believe that was the thing they were doing back in the day because they wanted to build up their reputation. As far as they're concerned now, they got a good reputation. I've never seen anybody get anything for free from that. Call them up and ask, but I doubt if you'll ever get anything free for that. On the other hand, find some good locksmith in your area, say, can you do Lexus ones? They're going to do it a lot cheaper. I've seen guys do it for $150 versus the dealer wanted $2,000. Go to a private locksmith who says he can do it. And of course, say the car doesn't run because it's all gone. They do house calls too. Lexus dealer doesn't, but most locksmiths will do a house call. They can come to your house and do it. Go that route because I doubt if you're going to get it free now. That was back in the day when they're building up their image. They already have their image. I've never seen anybody get anything free on a late model and like that. Call them up and see. You never know. Tell them Scotty says, gee, it was really good that you did the one for us before. Now we need it on this, but you'll probably find they'll just laugh at you and say, oh, that's a policy we don't do anymore. Tell me what happens, though. I'm curious. Triple P says, my wife took my 83 Jeep CJ7 4-speed for a drive. Now I have to ship in the fourth to get into Firth. Any suggestions? Should I sell my Jeep, my wife, or both? You're driving a really old vehicle. It probably needs a clutch. My grandson bought a used one, and he drove it around a while, and then the clutch broke. We had to put another clutch in the thing. Clutches wear out over time. It's an old vehicle. Now, especially, let's say your wife doesn't drive a standard transmission much. You put her in an old thing like that, that's a little bit hard to shift because it's so old. Yeah, the clutch is going to wear a little bit faster. Things wear out when they're that old. That's just what's going to happen, especially since people generally don't drive standards all that much. They get in one, they haven't been in one in years, if ever, and then they start learning how to shift. Yeah, if some clutch is on its way out, it's going to finish it off. And the reason you got to put it in fourth and then first is because the clutch is worn, and it's easier getting in a higher gear and then shifting it up. Pray that it didn't damage the synchro mesh. I mean, if it was really hit hard, first gear synchro mesh is going to be out. So you can't get it in first gear by itself because the synchro mesh is done. And when you put it in fourth, it's in gear, and then you can quick get it into first. Synchro mesh on first is messed up. How you can tell that is, let's say, be stopped and get it in first and drive it, and it's fine. But once you're moving, you got to get it in fourth and then put it in first. Then the synchro mesh in first has been damaged. You're going to have to rebuild the transmission. Synchro meshes wear out that way. Suntan Superman says, I'm flushing the coolant in my vehicle, my 2000 Pontiac, and I'm going to do it in my 2010 Sequoia. Can you give me some tips? All right, I just made a video on that. I did my matrix. If you take your time and do it right, you can easily do it with a garden hose and stuff. But here's the biggest tip. Take the thermostat out. Then you got a hole there. Then what you do is get a hose. You can blow in that hole to get all the coolant out of the block. You can also, once you take the drain off the radiator, do the same thing with the radiator. Once it drains out, you can spray the hose in, and that will also get it out of the heater core. If you want to be a fanatic, you could take the heater core hose off one of them and blow it in that way, and then with everything disconnected, it'll all come out, and you'll get rid of all the coolant. The only problem with doing it that way is, once you do it with the block, take the thermostat housing, put your garden hose in where the thermostat was in the hole, that'll get all the coolant out of the block of the engine. A bunch of it's in the engine, but it'll fill it with water. You don't want it filled with water. So then you do the trick that I invented years ago. You got a vacuum cleaner, shop vac, right? It sucks air. Well, it sucks air, but then there's an exhaust part too. Take your hose off the suction part and put it on the exhaust. So it's now blowing, and you get that big hose and you put that over the thermostat hole. And when you turn it on, the shop vac will blow all of the coolant out of the block, and it'll only be air. Then you can fill it all up correctly. Now, I'll tell you don't have a shop vac. They're getting so cheap. You can go to a place like Harbor Freight, and for $39 you can buy a small one, and it's good enough, and you can use it for vacuuming stuff up. It's very handy. That's a real good tip, because you don't want to leave the water in, because you want it 50% water and 50% coolant, and how are you going to figure it out? It's best to have it completely empty, and then you can put in a 50-50 mix and know it's right. Dave Equinox says, my radiator drain plug's leaking. I got a 05 Equinox. I drained it and flushed it with a plastic drain plug. Now it drips. I can't find a replacement replacement plug. I'm considering using JB Weld to permanently seal. Just use the lower radiator hose to drain in the future. Now, you don't just want to plug the hole. It may not stay that way. What you would do, drain it so it's dry it with a hairdryer. So then the radiator itself on the bottom there is totally dry. Then get your plug, mix the JB Weld Quick, the quick one, the one that dries fast. Cover your plug all around with it, put a little inside around the threads and put it in and tighten it tight. And let it sit overnight. Even though it dries in 5 minutes, it doesn't cure for like 12 hours. And it won't leak anymore. I've done that before. Unless you don't want to buy another radiator and stuff, it'll work. You only got what? 15, 16 pounds per square inch pressure on the radiator. It's not that much pressure. And the JB Weld Quick works really good on it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.